Hey all you Max devs, let's get together and build a sarcophagus. Alright, so we've looked at the pictures and stuff, and I want to show you where we are and what I was thinking and all the calculations I did, so we have a little bit more background from where we're going. I'm going to cut this into several pieces because it's going to be a chunk of work. Now, we're not going to do the high-res version, but we're going to definitely base this out and get something smaller and lower res. I'm not going to be counting polys at this point, but you know, it's something to think about as we go forward. Anyway, here's the sarcophagus. Here's my chicken scratches that kind of write out the measurements I'm calculating in my head. And here's my final piece. I made this thing exactly this size right here. And let me pull it down on screen real quick. It is 27.52 over 160.02. And if you look at the height, it's 160. It's actually 160.25, but that's fine. So 1.116.02 is 160.25. And then the height, the width is 275, and 0.2 is probably not right. Let me fix that. Yeah, it doesn't matter. So I had to fix it. So anyway, so you'll see that this is, instead of 275, it's 27. So the image that I'm going to put there, I'm going to go back into Max real quick, and I've made a plane. And if we unhide all real quick, we'll see this plane right here is 160.2 over 275.0. So I moved the decimal back out because these are the actual measurements you can see on here that I want. This is the correct height of everything. That's what my chicken scratches were trying to figure out. You know, I had to guesstimate, but the height of how things should be. And I figured it was about a 5.5 foot tall coffin. I know it's a little bit taller than it was in the image, but we can come back and pull back on that, and you can make it a little shorter by pulling back on this stuff. Anyway, so let's start building this. First thing I'm going to do is, as I have this as my background image, I'm just going to go ahead and freeze it. I've done the properties freeze and not show in gray so it doesn't disappear when I freeze it. Now I can't select it anymore. I'm going to go to plane, and the only thing I'm going to really make right now, and there's a total reason for this, is this piece right here. I'm going to make that piece right there. Get it something close in a plane, and the center point doesn't matter in this case, so I'm not building it from the top because we're going to build everything off this plane. We're going to have to dance around with that center point. So if we come over here and we look, and let me change this to transparent, and we know this is 231 centimeters, and down here it says 228, so we're just going to say 231, and you'll see it's a little bit off, but that's okay. We can live with that. And then the height is set to, should be 76.25, and it's 75.547, so 76.25. We type it in there. Now we're good with that. Now all we have to do is work on the plane. So I don't really need the background right now. We can come back to that in a little bit. So let's hide unselected. There we go. Okay, so we know this thing is cut into 3 pieces, so we can just go ahead and do that. Since we already have a plane, we can just divide it, the width, 2, 3. So we know that should be even. That's perfectly even. Okay, so the next thing we need to do before we go any further is figure out our column, because if you remember the column in here, which I didn't draw in the picture, we've got to find a way to get these columns across here, and there's one per each division and then one on each corner. So by dividing that piece that we just made, then we know the 2 in the middle, and now we have this one. We still are only going to make one chunk of this section though. So let's do like I do everything, I try and make it as easy as possible, but now I know the subdivision's right, and I know if I cut this in half and mirror, it'll be fine. We're going to be doing a lot of that. I'm going to delete this real quick, get rid of it. We know we're just working with one section and over here on the side. So I'm going to go ahead. At this point, I probably should name this one, call this Sarcophagus. Oh, I can't do it. We'll just call it coffin for now. I spelled it wrong anyway. Okay, so I'm going to take this right here, and what I need to do is go to the top, and I want to do a pillar, and I don't have the picture on frame right here, but I'm going to try and do a pillar. It looks like it's, you know, it's not super thick, it's not super thin, so I'm going to guesstimate. And again, without proper measurements, that's totally up to us to guesstimate, so I'm not going to correct you for small changes or differences in it. When we come to doing the higher res stuff, it may bite us in the butt, but for now, we're going to leave it. So I'm going to go from here and then just do like that, and then I'll adjust it. I'm not thinking that's how thick it's going to be. Let me go to the top here. One thing I may have done wrong is this is not in the center here. So why don't I just zero this out real quick. I know it'll be 0 on the plane, but that's an easier place to start with than the other. So if I go back to front, not that, this front, I pull this up. And you know, what I'll do real quick is I'll center that pivot point on the middle. Okay. One of the reasons I always tell you guys to collapse X or reset X form, which is over here in the tools, and then reset X form, is because when you move pivots, a lot of times it messes up, but it's more about when the rotation of the pivot moves, it'll keep the old rotation of the creation or some stupid thing. So we just get used to, you know, collapse and stuff. Anyway, I'm going to pull this pillar and go to the top and look at where that pillar is. It looks like it's fine. I'm going to put it there. And what I'm going to look for if I look down on the pillar, I'm going to make this transparent too, is I'm going to try to make the pillar line up with the center of that edge. So I want it to be right here in the center. I can snap it like you know, my brain's thinking, but I'm afraid with my luck, it's going to snap well, it actually snapped it good, except it snapped the top. So let me grab this one and snap that bottom. Okay, so right now it looks a little bit too thick for me, so I'm going to go try 3, see if that works any better. The great thing about doing it from the center is that we know when we shrink it, it's right. 3 still seems maybe like the right width for the final one, but I'm going to try 2. 2 looks pretty good. All right, it's key that the edge of the wall hits the center of this, because everything we do from now on is going to be based on that part. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is go to the front view again, and I'm going to turn up the snap and move this up to the center of it as best I can. And sometimes it's easier if I grab this and just say right click. Oh, let me go to edge mode, grab this one, and go connect. And then that way I know it's in the middle, and then connect. By doing that, when I come back out here, I can I'll be able to mirror it that way, but also I can know exactly where I want this to end. Since that's the pivot point, if I do a symmetry, it's going to go down, or it's going to go from this point. So I'm going to raise this up a little bit. Okay, and then that looks about, well, it's probably a little too high, so I'm going to do this down to 33. After I find an area, I usually just kind of number it in. Okay, I'm going to collapse this down to an editable poly. And then I will take that trick that I have, ignore back angle and by angle, and delete that at top part, delete the bottom part. And now I know I've got everything the way I want it. I'm going to have to do well, here, let me do this real quick. I'm going to symmetry it so we can see the bottom and the top, and I'll go, I'm sorry, Z. And I know that it should be about even from the top to the bottom, which is great. And then I'm going to go back down to the sub-object, and I can turn on the symmetry to see it. I'm going to grab this sucker, and I don't want to cut it up because we are going to end up cutting it up, but I want to cut it up until I do all the scaling, because if I scale it before I cut it up, you may have seen it yesterday, that it does the scale on a weird angle. So you always want to keep it as a simple thing, that way when I scale uniformly, it all goes out in the same direction. Okay, so I'm going to go out, let's say that much. Let me look at the picture again real quick. We're zooming in on this. Okay, so it's not much off here, and then it goes a little wider at the top. No kidoki. So I'm going to say that's good enough. It may be a little bit more. Let me pull it back. I always say I'm going to do it, and then I change my mind. I'm going to go up this way, and then I know I want this to be the top, so I'm going to do one more scale, and you saw that one was out a little bit more. And then I'm going to go back to front, and W, and lift it up. Something like that. That looks good enough. Close enough. You can change it up as you want. We'll get to any consequences we have after that. It's not a big change. Trust me. It's all about the unwrap. And if we end up doing a high res, if I end up doing a high res that you guys all use, then you just have to make sure your unwrap matches mine, which I'll make it really easy for you. Okay, so we look at this, and we see, okay, where we are. And we want to eventually attach this to this. I don't want to do it right now, but I do want to set up this edge right here, this wall, to do that. So really, the smart way to do it, of course, is to take off this half. I know we've already done the symmetry. You're going to see a lot of symmetry this round. And then I'm going to symmetry again, and then we have that. Then I'm going to come back to the sub-object, and I'm going to leave that on. I'm going to go front, Z, and I'm going to start doing, and in this case, I'm going to use Swift Loop, all right? And the Swift Loop shortcut, as far as I've seen, or I'm pretty sure, is Control-Alt-D. If it's not, then you can look it up, and I'll show you guys how to, but that should do it. Okay, I'm going to do one here, And I'm going to do one here. And then I'm going to do one there. And then I want one here and one here. Okay, so I've got all those parts cut out. Why did I do that? Well, first off, I noticed that my cylinder doesn't fit. And this is the key thing. You want to make sure these lines first, while I'm in here, match. If you, by the way, here's a trick. If you are working in this viewport and you want to only go in one direction, but you notice when I click on both of them, they disappear, but then I'd have to zoom out, go in that direction, and hope I get it right. Well, what you can do is you can click on it, click the direction you're gonna move, then double click it, and now it's locked in that direction, so I don't have to worry about going in any other direction, so it's a little bit easier. And I know this one's still locked in that direction, so I don't have to fight with that either, but I want these to be right on top of each other, and sometimes it's easier to see it this way, like that, and then this one, like that. Okay. The reason is because I'm going to cut out some of this stuff and make the shape so I can attach it really simply up is all I'm going to do. I'm going to grab this guy real quick though. Let me go back to this viewport here. I'll go to editable poly, the sub-object mode, and I'll pull this up. We just want these to be right on top, right exactly the same. And if we notice, oh, there's another thing I should have done. So if I come back to this plane, I need another symmetry, of course. I always forget how many symmetries I do in this one. So I'm going to delete that half. And then I'm going to symmetry again. This time we'll go Z, not Z, Y. Okay. So I'm symmetrying it this way. So I have it this way, and it's duping everything I do over here too. Okay, great. Back to the editable poly, and it's just working in a quarter here. Because I'm going to delete a bunch of these faces so I can just attach straight to these edges. And that's the important thing too, is that I have that edge lined up. Let me grab this guy. Oops, not that. Let me grab this guy. And now that I have them cut where I want, I can turn on the snap tool, grab the whole object, make sure it snaps to where we want, and we'll have to do a little bit of tweaking and stuff. That's fine. It's back and forth. It's that little nitpicky stuff that you'll probably end up doing or you won't, and sometimes it makes a huge difference and sometimes it's just a lot of busy work. It also depends on, like I've said before, who your lead is and what they expect and what kind of time frame you've got to work with here. If the game is shipped tomorrow, they're gonna be like, that's fine. If it's shipped to in 3 months, they're gonna be like, make it perfect. This is my dream. You're making my dream. Okay. So I'm going to pull that up there. Now I've got that part in there. Now what I'm going to do is zoom in. Or I'm going to, oops, sorry, I grabbed that again. I'm going to grab this one. And I'm going to go back to editable poly. I'm going to grab, oops, I keep doing that. Editable poly, but 4. Okay. Grab this one, and this one. Let me turn it on so you can see a little bit better. I'll shift and drag that one. And then it goes all the way down because it's built that way. I'm just going to delete them. I'm going to grab this one and delete it. If I look at this now, I have a pretty straight line, pretty things set up, no big deal. Everything looks good. Okay, and now you'll see over here it's the same too. It should be, so I should have 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is the first part of it. If you can see what we've just made and copied is, well, the same thing all the way across because it goes straight through the center of this. So we have these guys set up, cut out, and then we just need to add the pillars to it. This one's trickier though. So we're not going to go on to doing the rest of this stuff yet until we get this one down, because this is one that made me had to rethink what I did. I had this whole wall built and I went, oh, you know what? I should have done it this way. You got the benefit of me figuring it out for you. But you also got the benefit of me telling you why I did it this way. So it's not like you didn't see the mistakes I made. I'm telling you about them. Okay, let's see. And I think that's all I'm going to plan on telling you right now. Next thing we're going to do is the other side. I'm going to make these really short or shorter so you don't have to spend all the time watching each piece or scanning through. All right, I'll talk to you on the next one.